All right. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Jacob Eckeberger. I'm the content manager at Youth Specialties. And today I have with me Corey and Kobe, and we're going to be talking about specifically drive-by missions, rethinking mission trips to Native American people groups. And I'm so excited to have these two leading us in this conversation. It'll be really an honest back and forth about some things that we need to be intentionally thinking about when we partner with Native American peoples, as well as some ways that we can think about missions in general and what that needs to look like if we're people who are going to be bringing truly the gospel and partnering with the gospel in these places. Corey and Kobe, could y'all just tell us a little bit of your story, kind of where this topic intersects with your own lives, and then how y'all got connected in the first place?
Absolutely. Corey, you want to kick it off?
Well, I think you're going to have a better memory at how we connected. So you kick it off, my friend.
That's right. So my name's Kobe Cagle. I'm in Seattle, Washington, youth pastor at Quest Church, but I spent a good 7 or 8 years pastoring down in Texas. But Corey and I actually first met. I took a group of youth to the reservation, and I was actually partnering with an organization that was doing a drive-by mission, and I didn't even know it. I didn't know that we were doing things that were harmful for the community. All I knew, like most pastors, I wanted to make sure on paper that they had a solid theology, like around Christ and around, just those. I didn't know the right questions to ask, and so I looked, and it looked like they had a really good theology, and they had some neat things planned, and then they just planned it out for me, And so I went to the reservation, and without knowing it, was actually a part of some things that were pretty damaging to the community. But one of the things they were doing well was they, partnered with Corey, who's a youth pastor on the reservation, and had Corey come out and speak one night. And that's when I first met Corey. He won't remember it because I was one of like probably 30 or 40 people that week, and then there were a good 300, 400 people that he may have interacted with that summer. And so and it wasn't honestly until later that I realized, I was a part of something that really wasn't good. I didn't ask the right questions when partnering with this organization.
So I'll introduce myself. Corey Greaves. So my Indian name is Quesh, and my English name, or we say my colonial oppressor name, is Corey Greaves. So, we're here we're with Mending Wings. We're a Native youth organization here on our res here, the Yakima Nation in South Central Washington State. And so, yeah, I knew I met Kobe at a slam trip, which is one of our programs that where we bring in groups from all over the country, and they come and learn a different model of missions. So Kobe was one of those that came, and but he's right. That particular summer, I didn't quite remember him and specifically.
Well, Corey, real quick, can I interject something, Corey? Just so to separate, later after this organization that I'm talking about, actually I'm talking about a non-SLAM trip. I was with kind of a harmful organization, and then you launched SLAM, and that's whenever you and I really connected. And that's, but what you're referring to is the organization that you run, and SLAM, a really powerful trip run by Corey and his ministry team. But just to differentiate the two different organizations with which we worked.
That makes sense.
Sorry to interject.
Okay, yeah. No, good call. Are we throwing any organizations under the bus right now, or are we keeping this?
Not online. No. Not there.
All right. We said candid conversations. Anyway, yeah. Thanks for clarifying, Kobe. Yeah. So when you came on a slam trip, right, is kind of what I remember, because you were in a video too. So that we put together. So.
Yeah. Okay. So thinking about your own stories, and specifically Corey, I would love, if you're comfortable with it, to share a little bit of a history of missions, and specifically how it's interacted with Native American people groups, kind of where we've been, and I think part of this means airing out some dirty laundry of some things that maybe we don't understand that we did wrong. We meaning people and with my background and just white individuals who feel like we're going to go into another place and be a part of change, but mistakenly and maybe unknowingly causing more harm than good. Could you give us a little bit of just history in general on your reservation and people groups that you've worked with, and how that has developed into a better way of doing missions today?
Yeah. So I'll speak kind of I'll speak generically about missions among Indian people, and then I'll get more specific
Great.
as we talk about our people here. But so missions, the gospel, what they call the good news of Yeshua. And I love to use his tribal name, and I think that that's something that most American Christians don't realize, is that their faith has tribal roots. There's 12 tribes and bands that make up what we call the Israeli nation. We have 14 tribes and bands that make up what we call the Yakima nation. They Hebrews, they have first fruit feasts. We have first fruit feasts. We have so much in common with kind of Hebraic, Judeo Christian worldview, I think more so than maybe a Western evangelical does. But ever since kind of Columbus got lost and was floating around, lost in the Caribbean and stuff, and we took him in and nursed him back to health, we and then sent him home. There were approximately, I think they say something like 150 million native people in what's now North America. So missions started there, mission trips, if you would. 400 years later, there were about 230,000 of us left. So from 150 million to 200,000. One of the greatest examples of cultural genocide or ethnic cleansing in the history of the world, and all that took place right here, and under the direction and the blessing, more times than not, of the church. So Christianity has never really been good news to us as native folks, because the way that the gospel came to our people is you guys are pagans, you're involved in witchcraft, and you worship demons, and your drums are of the devil, and your dances are of the devil, and in order for you to be a good Christian, you need to learn the guitar, learn the piano, cut your hair, and along with that, learn our language, learn our culture, etc. So kind of the history of missions that we've gotten is almost like this, like, hey, Jesus loves you, but he doesn't like you a lot. But he does like us. So here's what it looks like, sounds like, feels like, smells like to be a Christian. And it's been a Western worldview. It's been a Western form of Christianity. And I think that's important for Western Christians to understand, is that they have a form of Christianity, and their theology may not be the only theology that's right or correct or orthodox.
Sure.
Because we're, as Indian people, are developing some of our own theologies and understandings of Scripture too, and it doesn't always mesh with Western theology. So not saying one's more right than the other, but man, we all got 3.5 pounds of brain to figure this all out. So, but so we go back to Columbus. That's kind of when all that mission stuff started, and a lot of us know kind of some of the history of that. We get into boarding schools, which they kind of, the whole philosophy, or you could even say theology of that, was to kill the Indian but save the man. So wipe out anything that's Indian about that person, and then make them civilized. Our religion, our way of life, that type of thing. So that's really been the Christianity that we've been given. And then, of course, manifest destiny comes into all of that, where God's given us this land and so on and so forth. And so you come to today, where honestly, I wish I could say that those ideas of manifest destiny are all the way gone, or they're gone from the church, but they're really not. In a lot of ways, I think some churches these days, more churches are starting to realize kind of this colonial Christianity that they're still a part of, and they're trying to change that. And I think that's good. I like to see that. But there's still a lot who function within colonial Christianity where, they take that scripture that says, hey, Jesus said, go into all the world. Therefore, surprise, here I am. And you never asked if you could come. You just showed up because Jesus said to, which I think is a horrible exegesis of that scripture. But so we've been watching, and I know it's not a new phrase, but these drive-by mission trips coming to our reservation for years and years. And they take their pictures and they put together their PowerPoints and their slideshows, and they go back home and they say, look what we did. They feel really good about themselves. And I call that a me-centered compassion. Look what we did. It's really about what you're feeling and how you're doing with all this. And I think it's really, it comes through real clear, at least from our perspective, it comes through real clear. And then you got groups that come with an agenda-based compassion, which basically they come with their own ideas of what we need. That's been missiology among Native people for I don't know how long. Everybody knows what we need, and they say the plight of the Indian. I don't know why every other people group, they seem to have issues and problems. Indians, we got plights. I don't know why that is. So I just got really fed up. I was doing a lot of complaining about these groups that were coming, these organizations that would come to our res that never asked if they could be here. They may have asked a white pastor if they could be on our reservation, and then said that they were welcome. But they never went to our tribal council and asked if they could be there. And I probably know the answer to that question if they had. So I just complain. I was in this stage of my life. I was just complaining about it all the time. And then I just thought, I could complain about it, or I could try to do something about it to change things, because I love the church and I love my people, but I love both of them too much to let them our relationships stay the same as it has been. So I think I sat down with a couple of my daughters, and I kind of told them what I wanted to do. They were teenagers at the time, and I said, what would be a cool name, and I think one of them brought up, I think they slammed something down. They said SLAM, or something like that. SLAM. And I said, SLAM trips. And I said, oh, could SLAM be an acronym? And I'm sorry, I'm not really good at that. So it's the best thing I could come up with was SLAM, was students learning about missions. So and I thought, that's really the ethos that we want to create, because we have been the perpetual mission field, and we see how that's worked out. Less than 3% of us as Native people claim to be followers of the Jesus way after 500 years worth of effort. Now, I'm not a great business guy, not real savvy like that, but that doesn't seem like a really good return on 500 years worth of effort. So we thought, well, we want to be about the business of teaching and helping students to learn a better model, to have a paradigm shift in the way they even think about missions. Not just to us, but really anywhere you go. But we figure this is kind of a springboard. This is a great place to come because you don't leave the country, but you're still coming to another culture when you come to our reservation. It's a great thing to do before you spring off to, Zimbabwe or wherever. And honestly, I don't think is it okay if we ramble like this? Is this all right?
You're doing great, man. We'll rein it in a little bit, but you've been giving us some good stuff, so keep going.
Well, I don't think, this is my own personal thoughts. I might and probably would have people disagree with me, but I don't think the church, the American church, has any business being anywhere else until they've repented
Mm.
and sought reconciliation. And I'm not talking about one ceremony. Oh, we're sorry for what we did. Okay, now we're going to Zimbabwe. But it's a long-term process, because we gotta live in this crap that's been created for us. We wake up to it every day. Most of the rest of the American church, they don't have to live in that reality. In a lot of ways, we're a forgotten people like that. So I really don't think that we have any business being in Africa or Puerto Rico or whatever, because you haven't taken care of the damage. The church has not taken care of the damage that it has done to the indigenous and the host people of this land, who the Creator had loved long before the others cast their sails to the wind. And I think that's another thing it does tie in with missions, is this idea that they brought God to us for the first time. And it's so untrue. God did not come over to this country on the Mayflower, my friend used to say. My mentor. The stories of Yeshua did, but the Creator didn't. And if we believe in an omnipresent Creator, he was already here with our people, already working among us. So anyway, we develop slam trips, and it's just a way it's where groups come in. They have to come in as learners. We don't allow them to teach vacation Bible schools or kids clubs or any of that kind of stuff, because you have to earn a place among us to be heard before you ever earn a place to speak. See, people that come here, they don't know that. Again, we're coming to give you something. And there's an arrogance in that, I think. And I see that in mission trip crap all the time, where the people that are coming, they think they have everything of value to offer to us. But we, on the other hand, have nothing of value to offer to you. So we have to be the recipients of stuff. And so if you don't see any perceived value in something, you don't see how any way it can benefit your life, you can get along without it. And so we got missionaries here who have never learned the language, who don't know anything, never been in a longhouse, don't know anything about our culture really. But all they care about is saving the soul, saving the soul, saving the soul. We're mad. It's really Gnosticism at its best, where matter is evil and spirit is good, and that's what we want to be all about, is saving the soul. But anyway, I digress. But.
Well, Corey, I am so grateful for all of the things that you're bringing into this conversation, and honestly, it feels a little bit, for me personally, like I'm kind of drinking from a fire hose, and that there's little things that you mentioned that have centuries of history behind it and the impact that goes into it. So thinking about from a youth worker's perspective, who maybe like me is kind of realizing some of this stuff for the first time, or uncovering some new weight to it that I didn't know existed before. What's kind of the first step that you think we should take? Is it even the basics of the language we use to describe these trips, like missions versus something else that takes away that idea that we're going to come in and do something? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I struggle with some of the language too. Missions. We do throw the word missions around, but I like learning trips better. You're coming as learners. That's really important to us, because what that does is that honors the people that you're going to. That you ask, and this can be in China and Africa. I mean, this principle can work anywhere. Inner city could work. If you're coming from the suburbs and you want to go into inner city, you call and you ask, may we come? And boy, is that a different model.
Yeah.
than what we're taught most of the time. May we come? And then don't be surprised if that community asks you, why do you want to come? You know, and and please don't say to help. We want to come help you. Those are red flags for us as Native people. That's red flags. We've had a lot of help down through the years. It hasn't really been helpful. I was just talking to a guy yesterday. Since we're keeping organizations anonymous, I won't say the organization's name. They're from Canada. They have this like radio and media stuff they do all over the world for different people. Well, they just decided they wanted to now reach out to Native Americans. I love the word. I love the churchy words. Reach out. That's another red flag, because that often means take. And because at some point when you reach out, you got to pull back. And so I was talking to him, and he had somehow got my name. He wanted to ask me. So I know one of the first things he said, one of the very first things on our conversation, this was just yesterday. He said, I just want to know, how can we help you guys? And I said, before I answer that question, I want to ask you one. Oh, okay. How can we help you? And it was class. It was like, it could have been from a movie, because he was going, I don't understand. And he said, I don't understand the question. I said, then why do you think we should understand yours? He admitted at the end of the I think I ended up really ticking him off at the end of the conversation, but he was trying to be Christian nice, Because that's what Jesus taught us to be, was to nice, right? Isn't it? Oh, no. Nice just means you want people to like you, I guess. But anyway, he said, that question caught me off guard. I don't know what to say. I said, well, when you find that answer, I said, call me back. At the end of our conversation, he said, well, I think the answer to that question. I said, no, we've only been on the phone for 15 minutes. You do not have the answer to that question yet. I said, think about it a little bit more, because his answer that he gave was, well, you can help us by telling us how to come to you best. I was like, dude, you are totally missing what I'm trying to teach you right now. So anyway, What was your question?
My question was kind of like talking about first steps for a youth worker, realizing that we have a lot to do to repair relationships with Native American peoples, but also we have a lot to do to reframe what we think of as our current view of missions, and so I love that you talked about the language that we use and how that in itself, the words that we choose, have sort of set the playing field and define a lot of those parameters. And so, Kobe, I would love to hear your perspective on, as a youth worker who, like you said at the very beginning, was doing drive-by missions but didn't know it, and now is learning how best to partner with Corey and Slam Trips, and what sort of insight do you have for those youth workers?
When I started, there were some things. I've been in youth ministry for 14 years, and I remember some early trips. And Corey, I don't know if I've shared this with you. Once I was down in Mexico building houses with a bunch of middle schoolers, and a woman whose house we were building, she came out to offer us some tamales she had just made, and I'll never forget that the crew chief went over to her and said, no, you're not here to help us, we're here to help you. And so I've seen that my entire career. It made me feel uncomfortable, but I was 23 and I didn't know what to do. And I share that because, to be clear, that I've made a lot of mistakes, and I continue to make mistakes. And so I think a few things that have been really helpful for me is to remember that we're not talking about an event. We're talking about discipleship. We're talking about being reconciled. We're talking about this holistic lifestyle. We're not talking about just trying to find a cool trip to take our kids onto. In the past, I think I only viewed mission trips and youth ministry as events. and for us, they were like the pinnacle of the summer. Kids would invite friends, and and then they get to do something good for the community. And I don't think I realized.
Kobe, another word that we hear too is experience. I love this experience, and I tell people, I'm not interested in giving you an experience. You want an experience? Go to Disney World. That's a cool experience. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Corey. Yeah. And so, I was just looking for these event type things, and really, we're talking about transformation. We're talking about reshifting. I told Corey this about 6 months ago. It was like the damage that has been done by the sin of this manifest destiny has penetrated me deeper than I'll ever know. I have a lot of things that I need to learn. And so I think part of it is just knowing that the way that we worship, the way that we study Scripture, the way that we pray is all shaped by our culture. In other words, most white people don't know that they have an ethnic identity. Most white people don't realize that they're a part of a culture. And it's a beautiful culture. Yes, there's a lot of sinful things that are a part of my people, but I had to go to the Yakima Reservation to learn that it was okay to be a white man from the South. And that was by hanging out with Corey and him asking me questions. Who are your people? What is it about your people that you're proud of? These are questions that Corey has asked me and made me explore my own ethnic identity. And so it's not just about the kids, it's about going on a journey as a youth worker. Another important thing that I've learned is the importance of building relationships with people and just sitting as a student. Corey, one of the things that was really important to me as I started growing and learning from Corey, I invited he and his intern at the time over to my house for fajitas one night, and we just sat and talked. I don't remember talking about anything deep, but I just remember some genuine relationship being built. And then his family invited my family out to stay with him as well. And so the next piece I would say, so first is like an inner journey, this kind of rediscovering what it means to be the person and the people that God created you to be. But another piece is just learning how to build authentic, genuine relationships that are reciprocal. Any relationship that is one-sided is tokenism, right? And so, or is selfish. How can you build a relationship that's really built on a reciprocal, the bettering of each other, right? And then some other things that I've learned is that with all of these trips, we don't. It's really important to partner with people from the community, who know the community, who live in the community, And I love that Corey said, ask permission. If the people say no, then don't come. But seriously, ask permission, because then your posture is one of learning and of listening. And because we have a lot to learn from not just the native peoples, but we have a lot to learn from what God's doing all over the world. God's doing incredible things in Corey's neighborhood. And I think it's just really important to teach the kids, the students. What God's showing me also is the importance of learning the movement of God and the Missio Dei, what God's doing all over the world. God doesn't need me. God doesn't need you. But God allows us to participate in His mission as He brings healing, as He brings restoration. And sometimes the way my culture has approached that, whether it's through the songs that we sing or the language that we speak, while it may resonate with me, it doesn't resonate with some people. In fact, it can, at best, people will miss the point. At worst, we could actually damage people, because like my ancestors did, they would say things. Literally, people would say, kill the Indian, save the man. And that was part of my people groups doing that. And so my language is not good language. To them, it's not good news. And so what does it mean to listen? What does it mean to learn? And to know what it means to really grow towards a relationship with the triune God in the context of community. What I'm learning is that my healing as a broken, sinful person is intertwined with the healing of other people groups. I can't heal if Corey doesn't heal. And so we're journeying together to know the living God, the Creator. Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh.
I got a question for you guys.
Yeah.
I see you guys got these cool little headphone stuff. I don't have that. Am I supposed to have cool headphones too, or what?
You don't have to.
Oh, okay. It just looks cool.
It's really, I mean, if I'm being honest, I have a 1-year-old that's crying in the room next door.
Oh.
And so without the headphones, you would hear a whole lot of that.
And my kids are back there too, so.
Oh, okay. Well, okay.
Well, talking a little bit about NYWC this year, the National Youth Workers Convention. Y'all are going to be teaching a seminar on drive-by missions, fleshing out these things a lot more. For anyone that could be watching this or participating in a blog post that's going to go live to follow this up, do you have any resources or books or things that they should be looking at as they prepare for NYWC in November? Is there anything that you feel like, it would be good for them to read leading up to this conversation?
Yeah, the Bible would be a good book to read. My friend and my mentor, he passed away a couple years back. There's a book out called One Church, Many Tribes. Richard Twiss, we say Atwa, Richard Twiss.
Okay.
Because he's our elder now. But I would suggest going and picking up that book. Another buddy of mine, Randy Woodley, has a book called Living in Color. And then the second one, something about living in shalom or something. I think those are both good books to read. And then to a lesser degree, because there's, I guess because I don't agree with everything in it, but I think another good book is The White Man's Gospel by Craig Stephen Smith.
Okay.
So those are a few books I would suggest.
That's great. Kobe, do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, a good one that really helped me at the beginning of my journey as I started rethinking missions in general was When Helping Hurts by Steve Corbett and Brian Fickert. And it's just I think it talks about the me-centered or the what was the other one, Corey? Me-centered, compassion.
Was it agenda-based?
Agenda-based, yeah. So just thinking about the ways in which we try to help people. We try to answer questions that people aren't asking with our good intentions, and we end up really harming the community. And so it's a really good book. If you want a good theology book on these, this is a pretty tough one to read, but it's called The Next Evangelicalism, Freeing the Church from Western Captivity.
Yeah, it's a good one.
And the author's name is Soong-Chan Rah. He's a professor at North Park Seminary. And that book, it rocked my world. And he has some good theology and some good sociology around. It's just talking about the way that the Western people have approached Christianity and how, while that is a way that resonates with our stories, it can be damaging or at least just fall on deaf ears elsewhere. So anyway, it's a really powerful book.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, and incidentally, my mentor and Soong-Chan Rah knew each other.
Yeah.
Richard called him the angry Asian. Richard, he also said that Christianity has a lot of answers to questions that Indians aren't asking.
Sure. Yeah. Gosh, so right before we disconnect here, is there any sort of final encouragement that you have for youth workers who this time of year they're thinking about what they're going to do this next summer for a possible learning experience or mission trip? Is there any sort of encouragement that you have in this season for them? Any final words you want to share?
I mean, first of all, I would say keep learning. Even if you're fresh out of Bible college and you think you know a lot, you don't know much. And, the more you learn, the more you know you don't know anything. And we all only know what we know.
Hmm.
So stay in the conversation with people that are different than you.
Hmm.
Even if it pisses you off, stay in the conversation. Can we say that word on here?
Well, you just did.
Too late. I got some other words I could use. Stay in the conversation. Don't run from it. Don't, oh, they tick me off, I'm out of here, or whatever. That's how you learn, man. That's how we learn from one another, you know.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And of course, I would put a plug in, I guess. Well, I'll let we put a plug in for Slam Trips.
Yeah.
He talks better than I.
Yeah, man. Well, we'll with the blog post that's going to go live, including this, we're going to include links to where they can learn more about Slam Trips underneath it. So that's a great resource that everyone should be looking at and trying to figure out how they can partner with.
Cool. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, Kobe. Any final encouragement you want to give?
Yeah, I think it's these conversations can be really overwhelming, especially at the beginning. And all of us have to start somewhere. And we just have to own up to the reality that we've been a part of something, even if it wasn't just us, although it's probably we've done some damaging things too, but we're a part of something that has been damaging, and just don't run from that pain. You know, lean into the pain, and in the midst of that, start looking for the movement of God and what God's doing, not just in your people group, but in other people groups. Another thing is it's okay to take a pause from mission trips. You know, you can take a year where you focus on camps as you continue to sort these things out. It's okay to, we actually don't call them mission trips, we do call them service and learning trips. Just theologically it makes a lot more sense for our context. But take some time and really just explore and do some deep inner searching. And then the final thing, if you're looking for organizations, you know, we did talk about Slam. Slam was a great trip for us, and we go every couple of years. Coming from like big program-driven ministries that, you know, where everything's just big and flashy. It isn't a flashy mission trip. It's one in which you literally come to learn and to serve, and it's a powerful experience where you really get to see what God's doing in the Yakima Reservation, in that particular neighborhood of the Yakima Reservation. But yeah, that's another one. There are other organizations out there, so just make sure if you are researching trips and organizations that you're asking some really hard questions about how they do their missions. Are they, if they're just like, don't just do what I did and look at the theological statement, but how are they embodying the theology? That's a really important question to look into as you're looking at mission trips.
And if I could add to that, don't just, I guess, do take a look and see, first of all, if you're going, let's say you're just going to a reservation, you know, is it white owned and operated, the organization you're going with? Is it native owned and operated? Look and ask, did you get permission to be there? And don't let them say, oh, a pastor said we could, or they picked one Indian out of, you know, the 10,000 enrolled members, and that's their token Indian that said, oh, we could be here. One Indian does not speak for all Indians. Find out, did they ask tribal council? Is the organization from that community, or do they just say we have relationship in that community? You know, those are all important questions to ask, and I think that's where Slam Trips is pretty unique in that we're just inviting you into our everyday life. We're not making some special quote unquote experience for you. We're inviting you into our conversation. We live here. This is our reservation. We're from here. We're not outsiders, so on and so forth. And so I think that makes us pretty unique from what I've seen.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, just to close out our time, for anyone watching this, we're going to be reposting this on our blog in the next couple of weeks with some final thoughts and ways that you can continue to have these conversations with your youth leaders, with your students, and with your church staff as you think about what form missions needs to take in the future with your ministry. And so with that, thank you so much, Corey and Kobe, for joining me and for the conversation, and letting it be an honest one.
Absolutely. A pleasure.
All right, y'all. Well, I'll hang us up, but if you have any questions about NYWC, you can visit nywc.com. You can see the schedule where Corey and Kobe are going to be teaching on this in a seminar, and I hope that you'll join us in Cincinnati, November 17th to the 20th. All right, see y'all.
Blessings.